In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to look at assignments after you have given them to the students or while you are giving them to the students. So once you've assigned something, it comes to this dashboard. It also goes to the gradebook dashboard, but I'm going to stay here for a minute in assignments. You'll notice that if I kind of collapse all of these are all of the actual test names, so the assignments that I've assigned, and then it'll show how many classes that they have been assigned to. So for instance, this one, if I click on that and drop it down, it's been assigned to 3 different these are all fake classes. And then underneath type, you'll see the type of assignment it was, whether it was an assessment or a class assignment or a practice assessment. You'll see that indicated by these icons here. And then under status, you'll see the statuses, how many kids have submitted them, and then how many have been graded. And then over here on the right-hand side, you'll notice some icons. This top one that says analyze, that's to analyze all of the data across all of the classes who have taken this test that have been assigned by you or possibly a district admin. But for now, it's going to be you anyway. So if I click analyze, this will show me, I don't know why this keeps doing that, but I have to get rid of that filter for some reason. This will show me all of the classes that have taken this assessment listed here. So assignment statistics by class, and you'll just notice that data. This is a dashboard of data. If I go to the subgroup, that will also show me the classes and how well each class did, like the distribution. Underneath analysis, I can see across all of the questions how students did, and then how students did down here for each question. This doesn't look great because I only have one question and one class that took it and one student, but you'll see underneath district average all of the classes that have taken that assessment that have been assigned by you, and then all of the questions going across from left to right and how each class did on each question overall. Under frequency, I can see the types of questions and how kids did across all of the classes on the types of questions. And if I scroll down, I've got one column for the most difficult items and another column for the most misunderstood. And I can change this threshold as well. And again, I only have one question, so you're not going to see anything change down here, but you might on your screen. And then underneath standards, this gives me each of the standards that have been assessed across the assessment and all of the questions. And then down below, how students did on each of the standards. And again, I only have one standard here, so there's not much to look at, but on your screen, you might see more. And then if I click on students, this will give me an overview of proficiency. And then when I scroll down, I will see the individual students and what performance band they are on. So that, again, is an entire assessment given to all classes. Now, if I wanted to see an individual class, I would come back over here and click on the live class dashboard next to the class that has taken that assessment. So I'm going to use this one just because there's a student that submitted it here. I really like the visual of this because it does color code them. So obviously the green and the red you'll notice right away, but the gray are questions that student skipped. And this is where if a student skipped any question or several questions and submitted the test, this is where you would come back to turn it back on for them. In order to turn it back on for them, you would use something called redirect. If I select this student and click redirect, now I can choose, I can add students if I want them. here, but I can choose which questions are going to be delivered to this particular student or set of students. And I only am going to give them questions that they have skipped. And I'm going to leave this as teacher feedback only. Not that that is going to matter for when you choose ones that have skipped, because there's not going to be any teacher feedback probably. But you can choose these other two options as well. But for this particular assessment, it was a midterm maybe, and then I would choose a date to close it and then click redirect. And that will reopen the assessment for that student. If a student was absent, I can do the same thing. I can select all of the students that were absent, or I can click redirect here and select all absent students. And then all questions. And this won't matter because they haven't taken it. And then click redirect. And that is useful if the close date is after or before today, before the student is able to take it and it has already closed, you can reopen it. Underneath more, here are some other options. And then if I wanted to show this particular screen or any of the screens located here to my students while I'm presenting my Chromebook, if I click present, this will anonymize all of the students and change the order that they're in so the students can't guess, okay, if it's an alphabetical order, who's who. So this way I can show this whole screen and not have to worry about embarrassing any students. Underneath the Students tab, you may not present that, and that's okay. This shows me each of the students and how they did on each of the questions, but also how much time they spent on each of the questions. So on the right-hand side of this chart is the amount of time, and then down at the bottom are the questions themselves. And then if I scroll down, I can see exactly how they answered each of the questions, and I can edit and regrade it if I want to. And I can give student feedback over here on the right if I want to for the individual student. And if I want to change the student, I click this little drop down here and then change the student. I know it's not super intuitive, but it's right here at the top. Then if I go to the questions button, the screen, this shows me each of the questions. So I've got question 1A, and here are all my questions here. And then it shows me across, and I only have one student who took this assessment, but if I had all, 20 students, it would show the students across the bottom and their initials. So if I reset that, this is the actual student's initials. And then how much time they spent on that question. So you'll see a chart going up and down for all of the students, how much time they spent, and whether or not they answered it correctly, incorrectly, partially correct, or skipped. Then at the top, Express Grader is going to look like a grade book, but what I like about this is it doesn't just give me the score they received on each of the questions, but I can also see, if I click on response, how they answered each. So I can look at trends. So if all of my students, see if I can see this one here, if I take a look at all of my students and click respond, I can see that the students that answered it incorrectly mostly chose D. So now I need to clear up some misinformation or something like that. Which screen? I think I was on this screen. Yes. Okay. Then on the standards-based report, here is a nice visual of how my students did for each standard and which questions assessed that standard. So instead of looking at it by question, I'm looking at it by standard and what the mastery level is for each of those standards. And especially if I'm using multiple questions to assess one particular standard or two, like for instance, these two, I can see how my students are doing answering different types of questions on the same topic. Back to this screen, I can use my filters if I want to. If I'm getting to the point where I have too many assessments here, I can filter it for, my classes up here as well. So depending on how many classes you teach, you can filter it for each of the classes. I'm going to shrink that back down. Over on the right-hand side, I also have actions for, again, this is the main assessment across the top. And these are all of the things that I can do from this screen for that assessment. And then these little icons bring me right to these dashboards. So if I want to go right to the Express Grader, I can. And I can go right to the standards-based report that I can do to that as well. So that's pretty much it for the assignments page. And let me know if you have any questions.